Back in the 70s, young men dreamt of Lambos and Ferraris. But for many of them, reality was two-wheeled.
Is it you?
25 years on, the BSA long gone, a settled family life, a company car, and the time to prove to themselves before it's too late that they're not boring old has-beens. So older, but not necessarily wiser, they become born-again bikers.
For about the same price as a Fiesta, you can afford to buy yourself a sensational 160-mile-per-hour superbike, which bears no relation to that long, scrapped 1970s runabout. Now, you may have the money to buy the bike, and of course the gear to look the part, but if it's been 20 years since you sat astride any bike, let alone one that can go from 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, then that's an incredible leap to make. And that's how born-again bikers can end up becoming another statistic.
Young guys larking around and ending up having a fatal accident, as in this episode of Casualty, is perhaps the common view of the sort of people who end up killing themselves on bikes. In fact, the reality is quite different. Despite individual cases of bikers riding like lunatics, serious accidents involving bikes are down by 71% since compulsory basic training was introduced 8 years ago. But the death rate for 30-somethings is up by 35%. In some parts of the country, 90% of fatal bike accidents involve the over 30s.
The bikes nowadays, for example the Fireblade and the Blackbird, this type of bike are very high powered. They accelerate exceptionally quick, and in a built-up area there was one where he decided to go from 30 mile an hour up to 70 mile an hour in a very short space of time. And as much as certain bikes perhaps wouldn't stay with that style of bike, he can't actually outdo the camera.
So what is it that these essentially law-abiding citizens do to end up killing themselves?
It seems they don't take into account the difference in performance and acceleration between the bikes of their youth and their present machines. In fact, their performance simply doesn't match up to the bike's performance.
Police say that born-again bikers almost always have the same sort of accident. They take a bend too fast and lose control. Put a Honda 250 next to a modern-day sports bike like the Fireblade and the difference becomes obvious. The 250 has basic linear suspension, single-disc brakes and a top speed of between 80 and 85. You can see why a born-again biker might be somewhat overwhelmed by a top speed of double that and a machine that can manage 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds. Jeff Crowther, a lecturer in consumer behaviour at Huddersfield University, has made a study of born-again bikers and why they feel the overwhelming urge to return to two wheels.
As a car driver, he's a motorist. As a motorcycle rider, he's a motorcyclist. And that takes him into a whole new area, an area where he can experiment with new imagery, with a new appearance, but much more than that, he can get fulfilment from his driving because of the absorption you get from being a biker. Some talk about the mantric throbbing of the engine.
The what?
The mantric throbbing of the engine as it buzzes away between the legs. You know, there's a closeness to nature. You know, the wind in the face, the sensual aspects of biking are exciting, enthralling, and it's something which can provide a great deal of physical stimulation as well as mental stimulation. And of course, there's an emotional involvement too.
Some born-again bikers are all too aware of the changes that have taken place over the last 20 years.
I found that traffic was heavier and people weren't looking out for what you were doing. It was a nightmare, really.
I rode the very same bike that I rode 11 years ago. A friend of mine had rebuilt it and the brakes basically just don't work and the handling was frightening.
I've been a pillion for about 15 years and I thought, oh, I don't know, it's got to be done. Go out as one of the lads and enjoy it, you know. Yeah.
When I had a bike last time, I used to use it for my only means of transport. Now I'm using it as a hobby and it's very pleasurable at that.
Many police forces have identified born-again bikers as a major problem. They believe the solution isn't to stop them riding, but to educate them.
We're talking about responsible adults here, people with commitments, and yet they're buying the machines, they're not getting the training. And the performance of the bikes which you can buy now is phenomenal. All they need is basic training in safety and they'll live a lot longer.
Some forces offer training and there are many independent trainers. But with sports bike sales up 77%, many courses are oversubscribed. In fact, Honda is spending more than £1 million and offering 15 hours of free training to anyone who buys a bike from one of their dealers.
We learned how to steer, didn't we?
Yeah,
What were you doing before?
That might sound very strange, but no, the technique of steering, of just applying the opposite lock slightly to get you around the corners better. And it
shift the position of the bike so much easier in the road.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
Looking forward to see what's coming, and the safety aspect, it was very good.
You're always working to assess the situation of the road in front and always expecting the worst, and that's a useful tip.
The majority of people particularly want to deal with cornering, positioning, assessment of bends, that sort of thing. I've never seen anyone come off the course other than with a big smile from ear to ear. So if that works, that's fine. That's what it's all about.
So you may have the licence, you've got the bike, and you've got the free time to enjoy the long-lost love of your youth. But if you haven't got the ability to match the machine, then it could all go horribly wrong. So you need to bite the bullet and get back to basics.